Hello, everyone. My name's Mark LeDuc, and on behalf of SAE, I would like to welcome you to the WCX panel discussion entitled Moving Innovation Forward, sponsored by Toyota. I will apologize in advance. I'm having a little connectivity issue, so there may be a little delay in the slides. We are featuring 5 experts sharing their insight on leading teams to create innovative products based upon consumer demand and a need for safer, more efficient vehicles. As attendees of this discussion, we also wanted to make you aware of SAE's 2 new publications that are follow-ups to our best-selling book, The Road to the Top Isn't on the Map. These 2 publications, Flight Path to Success and The Road Forward, feature top women in aerospace and automotive industry sharing their insights and advice to all professionals. We are with much gratitude that 2 of our panelists here today are featured in these new releases. The format of the discussion is a series of short perspective statements on the topic, followed by some opening discussions and audience questions, where actually we'll mix the discussion and the audience together. As an audience member, your participation is critical to the session, so please ask your questions through the chat functionality located here in the stage upper right, and please make sure if you have a question specifically for a panelist that you indicate whom the question is directed to, or say all if you wish to have the entire panel share their insight. We ask that you participate. We have a couple of polls located coming out here. For participants of the panel, your perspective on these topics are critical, so please check in on those and participate. And finally, we encourage you to continue networking and interacting with other individuals. You will find there's a chat function that you can do that with, as well as the Q&A, and then in other parts of the digital platform, you can do that. It is really my true pleasure now to turn over the dais to one of the co-editors of The Road Forward, Terry Barclay, with Inforum. She is the president and CEO, and as that role, she oversees the only professional organization in Michigan and one of the only few in the country that combines strategic connection, proven professional development programs, a respected forum for new ideas, and original research to accelerate careers for women and boost talent initiatives for all companies. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Terry Barclay.
Thanks for that introduction, Mark. And really, we're where the cool women come together to connect with one another and advance, accelerate careers, cool women and cool companies. So Inforum and our Automotive Next industry group are just so excited to be partnering with SAE on this important and interesting panel and roundtable discussion. Inforum Automotive Next is a group of 32 top companies in the automotive industry, each of which is committed to building gender-balanced workforces at their companies, but also advancing the industry's ability to do that. So they work together to make that happen. And we know that we're making progress when we see a roundtable with people on it like we have today, who are all of whom are here because they are top experts in their fields. And oh, by the way, they're also fabulous women executives and leaders. But there's no escaping the fact that the data shows us that even though we're celebrating International Women's Day this month, we have more work to do. So Inforum Automotive Next is working really in 4 key areas. First, providing truly unique career development opportunities that help women and men go farther faster. Leadership development programs, secondly, that hone key skill sets that are tied to success at all levels of careers. Third, advocacy and awareness, raising the visibility of women leaders in the industry with projects like our partnership with SAE on these fabulous publications. So kudos to SAE for leading that charge. And my colleague and partner in crime, Carla Bela, will talk a little bit more about that later. And then fourth, visibility and strategic connections so that role models and mentors within the industry can find one another and connect. So we invite all of you to join Automotive Next and our partners to keep the learning going after today's roundtable. And we hope to see you at all the upcoming SAE events. They do such a fabulous job, and Automotive Next events. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator of today's roundtable, Kristen Slonina. Currently, and I say only currently, Kristen is COO of TrueCar, an online portal for car buying consumers and a network of over 10,000 certified dealers. But that's just the most recent chapter of her amazing career. She's actually known as the purple squirrel around TrueCar because of her unique pedigree: a core engine engineer, mobility expert, consumer fulfillment strategist, and an all-around savvy business leader. And here's a fun story about Kristen. At 22, she and her fellow MIT engineering students built a solar car to compete in the American Tour de Sol, a 5-day solar car race, and won. So I hope we're going to hear more stories about that and about Kristen's amazing career. Ladies and gentlemen, Kristen Slonina.
Thank you, Terry, and what a great introduction. As I was doing my what I call closet clean out during COVID time, I actually found the original newspaper clippings from that 5-day solar car event, the American Tour de Sol. So it brought back a lot of memories. And it's so interesting, like how we can sit today, 30 years later, and look at the huge changes that have really come around already and that are going to come in this whole way people and goods are going to move. So it's a really exciting time that we're in right now. And moving innovation forward, I think, is a fantastic title. And how it is really going to affect all the different sectors. And how I look at it, there are certain societal trends that are really coming into play now that didn't exist earlier. You know, things such as urbanization, but yet environmental concerns. And there is a diminishing emotional attachment to cars. My oldest son is 21, and I had to force him to get his driver's license for me. He would just much rather have me cater to him or have an Uber type ride, because this is what he said. He had better things to do with his time. So there is a changing shift of what's happening in the world on that. And there's always, you know, the consumer's desire to be connected. We are about connectivity now. And there's different expectations that we have as a society. And then what you do is you couple that with all the disruptive and exponential technologies. So things such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual and augmented reality, the whole Internet of Things and IoT, and then, of course, autonomous and electric vehicles, and blockchain or distributed ledger technology. So what it's doing is it is creating new experiences, new business models, better individualization. And as we look at on-demand, shared, and really just a different way of looking at things. So the headset that I have is, instead of buying a car, which is an underutilized asset, that sits in my garage over 95% of the time unused, and even more so now with COVID, into something that's more about cost per mile and how my insurance could be on a cost per mile and how it could be more on demand and exactly when I need it. So I think it's a very fascinating place that we're in when we get this convergence. And one of the things that I like to look at is history in terms of how it can shift when that convergence takes place. You know, so I like to think of the picture of Fifth Avenue, New York City in the early 1900s, where in the picture, it's all horse and buggy, and there's literally one automobile. And then 10 years later, it's completely flipped. You see one horse and buggy, and all the rest are automobiles. And quotes that people had said at the time in the early 1900s was that the horse and buggy will never be displaced by the electric motor. And so I like to look at history, and I think that that's where we're at today. And I'm really excited about the panel that we have. And I would like to introduce them, and they're going to introduce themselves along with their slide. And so first I'm going to kick it off to Jackie Birdsall from Toyota, and she'll give her introduction, and then we'll go to the rest, Karen, Raylyn, and Desi. So Jackie.
All right, there we go. Looks like I've successfully unmuted myself. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. As Kristen mentioned, my name is Jackie Birdsall. I am a senior engineering manager of a team called Fuel Cell Integration at Toyota Research and Development. So I'll be speaking to innovation from the perspective of Toyota's research and development team. And what we do is we work on hydrogen fuel cell electric technology. So our team actually supported the North American launch of both the first generation and now the second generation Toyota Mirai, which is an all-electric vehicle that refills in around 5 minutes. But as a bit of background, Toyota has been developing fuel cell technology for over 25 years. And in 2015, we launched our Environmental Challenge 2050, shown here. The challenge is divided into 6 categories, all focused on reducing our negative impact on the planet, including vehicle electrification, which is where the Mirai fits in. However, to reach our environmental goals, we need to innovate beyond our traditional boundaries. And in 2017, we did exactly that by installing 2 fuel cell systems into a semi-truck to demonstrate that we can pull 80,000 pounds with 0 emissions. The success of this first demonstration led to a wave of innovation, and just 3 weeks ago, we announced our fuel cell power module, which is a packaged design meant to replace gasoline and diesel engines in a multitude of applications. This means we can decarbonize outside of our light-duty fleet and along our manufacturing and distribution chain. So I think we're going to hear from other panelists, but this really is an unprecedented moment of upheaval in the norms in both the automotive and the aerospace industries. And it will require vision, determination, and above all, innovation. And I, for one, am thrilled to be a part of it and have the opportunity to discuss this moment with this spectacular panel and all of you today. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Jackie. Lots of exciting things that are happening. Now I'd like to have Karen Holger from Bosch's Electrical Drives Division take it away. Thanks, Karen.
Kristen, I'm really happy to be here with all of you today, and I'm hoping that we get a lot of good questions in the chat as well, so that our conversation can really involve everybody here, but looking forward to it. This image that you're seeing here offers one potential view of mobility, which is setting the stage for me, at least for an innovation conversation. What will the future of mobility look like? How will we keep drivers and passengers safe? What features and function will they expect in their vehicles today and tomorrow? At Bosch, we frame our thinking about the future of mobility in the context of space. Software and solutions, personalized, automated, connected, and electrified. We can't predict the future, but we can be fairly confident that these will be the drivers of mobility. At Bosch, we're a company who invents. It's in our slogan, invented for life, and it's in our corporate DNA. We believe that innovation has a place in every function, not just design engineers, but also our manufacturing plants, our purchasing department, really any department. Digitalization is transforming the way we work, and our innovation culture is transforming the way we think about our work. Because sometimes we need change right now, not change tomorrow. When the pandemic hit, for example, and we closed our manufacturing plants, we really needed innovative approaches to align our ramp up with our customers' ramp ups. When our corporate leaders challenged us to start building our sustainable future, then we needed innovation to realize our target of being carbon neutral at all of our 400 locations worldwide by 2020. Innovation, the way we think about it, is not only for creators, it's for all of us, which is why I'm looking forward to the discussion today. Innovation isn't just for products either, it's also for partnerships. Achieving the mobility goals of our industry will require the entire ecosystem to work together to be faster and better at anticipating and meeting customer needs. For us, that's led to a partnership with Microsoft for a software-defined vehicle platform that will enable us to seamlessly integrate vehicles on the cloud. And also a transformational collaboration with Ford and Bedrock here in Detroit, where we demonstrated our Bosch automated valet parking with a Ford Escape in a Bedrock garage. And innovation is, of course, for people. Our associates are the drivers of innovation. And the speed of change is so dramatic right now that the creators from yesterday may be left behind tomorrow if we don't do our jobs to bring them along. That opens a multitude of challenges and opportunities around the concept of upskilling in our plants and in our product development and even in our leadership. At Bosch, we feel like we know a thing or two about inventing, not just in mobility, but across all four of our business sectors. For us, that means focusing on what our customers want, understanding the problems that we have today and the possibilities of tomorrow, thinking about that horse and car analogy that Kristen shared, harnessing the available technology of today, but planning for the future technology. For us, that's what inventing is, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. I think now I'm handing it off to Desi.
Great, thank you.
Hi, and thank you. I'm Desi Waykonshevich, and I lead the Automotive Safety Office for Ford Motor Company. It's truly an honor to be here today with this esteemed panel of experts to talk through technology and innovation, because we all believe this is a key enabler in going forward. Ford Motor Company has been built on a premise that freedom of movement drives human progress. And if we think about applying this passion to create great products, cars and trucks and technologies, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to talk through that commitment to become the world's most trusted company. And what does that mean as we design our smart vehicles for a smart world that really help people move safely, confidently, and freely? This slide highlights some of the key tenets to our strategy. And I'll briefly highlight a few of those principles, starting with the winning portfolio. And you heard from the panelists before me speak to how the portfolio demands are shifting, how our customers are shifting in the context of how they both view vehicles and use them in a day-to-day perspective, but also an accelerated focus on new propulsion. I'm super excited about some of our new products. Things from the new Bronco, which will have unmatched customization and off-road capability for those enthusiasts who are really looking for that, but also for products like the Mach-E, which really redefine an electrified product and platform that can be everything that it needs to be, but equally aspirational from a consumer perspective. We're really proud of how we use the new products to begin to standardize equipment and technologies that help things like crash avoidance. And frankly, we're going to make more of those features available standard in our products. New propulsion is important to all of us. And you've heard many of the panelists talk about how that's going to reshape the world and how important that is with respect to a sustainable future. And I'm happy to say that Ford continues to invest deeply in electrified products. And we just recently announced $22 billion in electric vehicles that begin with the Mach-E, but they can continue with fantastic products like the Transit and the F-150. Our investment in autonomous vehicles continues, and as part of the platform for today's discussion is we're going to talk about how do we use those learnings in broader consumer demands, and how do we make autonomous vehicles trusted technologies that consumers not only navigate to, but feel very comfortable in terms of next purchase decisions. And finally, a brief couple sentences on connectivity. Ford is committed to adding connectivity across our fleet, but also using technology and innovation to really unlock other demonstrated capabilities in our vehicles that, again, nurture the demands of our customers and really help create a seamless experience across our products and services. I'm really heartened by the partnership that we have all engaged in, both public and private sector, which is really a demonstration of a shift in how we work together in the automotive sector to create a collaborative approach to innovation. And I hope today's panel continues to exercise our creativity in terms of what do we do to integrate technology going forward, and how do we all enable it. And I'll pass it back to Kristen to get us going.
Great, thanks, Desi. And Ray Lynn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so it's great to be here, and my background is a little different. My background is primarily in the aerospace industry, and I have a variety of experiences, including working in engineering, program management, quality, as well as U.S. trade compliance. And what I'd like to do today is kind of start off with a quote and then wrap up with a couple of reminders. So Albert Einstein reminded us that you can't solve a problem at the same level it was created. You have to rise above to the next level. So what I hear is we need progress to progress. And the use of our emotional intelligence skill set is one way to progress in this period that we're in and towards continued innovation and successes. But what is it and why is it important? Well, it's the rational side of us. It pertains to the 400 emotions a day that help drive us. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our emotions and our responses. And it's also the ability to help us recognize and influence the emotions of others. The importance is that those 400 conscious and unconscious emotions drive our behavior. They help us respond to stress. They help us perform a task, help us work with the team, and ultimately help us make the decisions that we make. Another area that I'm hoping to introduce into today's discussion is the challenge that our technical workforces are experiencing in the areas of compliance, given this change in our working environment. Let's take export compliance, for example. In this remote environment, we have team members that are working from home, and they may be collaborating or working with U.S. partners, but they may also be working with non-U.S. persons as a supplier, a contractor, or a customer. There may even be non-U.S. persons in the home. In our previous work environments, we could rely on a resource that may have just been down the hall to help us deal with this export of technology or technical data that could be under the jurisdiction of the Commerce Department or the State Department. Now those resources that supported us are a phone call away, an email away, maybe a meeting away. And all of that means that we can have changes to the way our workflows progress. We can have a little bit more frustrations that we're experiencing, and there may be potential risk to our awareness of export compliance and our process rigor that we had in the past. A similar area of concern can be intellectual property in this environment, our corporation's crown jewels. I would like to think that our forward-thinking companies with these risk and high control technology areas have compliance programs established with not only well-defined processes, but also awareness and triggers that with some level of AI that help us ensure that we have export compliance with our US regulations and corporate policies and practices. If I'm empathizing here with the engineer working at home, I'm also hoping that their efforts to empower the engineer and that their efforts to remove counterproductive barriers in their innovative process. So with that, I'm looking forward to continuing to learn, reflect, and progress towards continued innovation in this call today. And remembering that we can't solve a problem at the same level it was created. We have to rise above it and go to the next level. So with that, I think, Kristen, I'm turning it back over to you.
Thank you, Raylan. And you know what? Albert Einstein loved that quote and very relevant insights. And, so as I think about innovation, and I look at, driving kind of what I'll call the external part of the innovation, that there's, of course, different relationships that are coming into play with customers. And, Karen, I'm going to start off with you. So what have you seen and experienced as the biggest expectation that your customer has and the challenges that you face in meeting them?
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. Safety for sure is one. I'm responsible for the business in electrical drives that works on actuation, so moving seats and windows and things like that. And we spend a lot of time, obviously, talking about safety, especially when we think about the future of the vehicle and the way interiors may change and the future of that interior and what we need to do to keep people safe. So I think safety is always a key concern, but at the same time now we have the question of technology integration, what our customers want, seamless integration of technology from your pocket to your vehicle, and the functionality that brings with it. And then obviously there's a data security component. How do we keep vehicles safe? Those are, to me, sort of the big overarching things. And then there's the convenience and sexiness factor as well. From a challenge perspective, what I think is really paramount right now is that we're all planning for a future that's not quite clear yet. Electric vehicle adoption rates, autonomous driving levels, and when they'll be integrated. How much is ride sharing going to be really as a percentage of the overall vehicle population? What we're all trying to do is we're trying to plan for all of those futures simultaneously, and I think that's one of our biggest challenges. Is we're all trying to innovate together quickly, but the target isn't clear yet, which makes it fun.
It would be
nice maddening
to have that crystal ball, right, Karen?
Exactly.
Really
right. Yeah.
Absolutely, that is a great challenge. And Raylin, I'm curious about what you see on how do we really better, I guess it's intuit what's most probable future scenarios that are coming into play. It's not easy.
So yes, our scenarios are going to change, and we're going to have to keep doing what we're doing now, I think, which is benchmarking and learning from each other. I remember a conversation that we had earlier this week, and I think it was Karen who mentioned she was struggling, or maybe Karen, she was struggling with how to integrate some of her senior technologists in this environment to help us innovate. And one of the things that we were doing in the aerospace industry is using those technical leaders as fellows, disciplined chiefs in our area, and they have the responsibility to help mentor and help guide. They have a responsibility to chair and sit on boards to provide their guidance as we go through some of these processes and challenges towards our future designs.
Yeah, there are great challenges. And as I think about, something like, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and that's getting more and more used to help us. And I'm kind of curious, Jackie, you're doing a lot of new things there at Toyota. What do you think? How has it already, things like data analytics and AI, what impact have you seen that have already?
I mean, on our perspective, there's a lot of data, right? We hear a lot of the buzzword of big data, right? It's definitely helping us to understand how the customers use the vehicle, what they're looking for. We're talking about rideshare, so I think it's been very helpful in helping us to understand and hear the customer voice and really create a product that best serves the customer. But I did kind of want to go back to Karen's point real quick and trying to understand what the customer actually wants. And I think that, with the speed of innovation where we are right now, a critical component on top of safety is, durability and performance. And it's hard to innovate so fast while maintaining quality and durability and meeting the customer's expectations. When they see Toyota brand, they expect their vehicle to last for 300,000 miles.
Work when it's minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Exactly. And when it's 140. So
exactly. So there's so much work behind the scenes to ensure that we're still meeting the customer's expectations with this new technology. And so I think that's been a really fun and interesting challenge for us, and it's something that we really need to keep our eye on as we're continuing with the speed of innovation.
Yeah, excellent point. And I'm going to kind of shift a little bit. Desi, I would love to get your thoughts and experience on, when you look at driving innovation internally in a company, what has surprised you the most in terms of innovation, while most of the staff honestly has been remote? Sharon.
I'm struggling with mute, but I got there. Thank you. I think that's a wonderful topic. And I think that's probably one of the biggest learning that we've all had to undertake is how do you bring forward the richness of the conversation, particularly around innovation. If we think about traditional brainstorming and whiteboard sessions, it's just different when you're doing it all remote. One of the things it does is it equals the playing field because everybody has a similar voice. But what we have to do as leaders of organizations and people leaders is ensure we have the right conversations and we provide the tools to listen in on those, topics. I can't tell you it's been completely straightforward. I think we're learning some of the challenges. But what's interesting is some of what's coming forward with respect to innovation. It's a bit what Jackie said earlier is we have this traditional expectation around quality and durability and reliability, but we also have this dichotomy of wanting to go fast, right? And we always, we look at software as an example around, product to customer is a way shorter time cycle than a traditional mechanical commodity. And we're trying to figure out through innovation is what's the right entry point and what's the right risk, frankly, because our consumers demand and appropriately warrant to be safe and to have those basic considerations. But we also want to give them the tools that's going to attract them. I love listening to you about your son not wanting to drive, and that's not atypical, right? There's a lot of people who are making that assessment, particularly after COVID. They're looking at, my vehicle sits unused 90% of the time. What are those relevant factors and continuing to proliferate that discussion in a remote setting is just different. I'll say it's not impossible. We've learned a lot of wonderful things. I think it depends on all of us as thought leaders and as, people leaders to bring people into the conversations. And, it's been remarkable. Who would have thought a year later we're sitting here doing that? But we've had some of the best innovation discussions, in remote settings because, frankly, more people can participate. Before we were structured or limited to who was in the room. Well, now you've got people calling in from everywhere and offering a view you might have missed.
Yeah, that is a good point. It opens new opportunities that are different. And I'd like to take some questions from the chat. So I do encourage our audience to put in questions in the chat. And one of them, it kind of alluded to what you said. Here we're now getting different design cycle times, right? Because there's the connected vehicle, phones are changing constantly every 6 months, and cars are a much longer lead time, 3+ years. And infrastructure is even longer than that. It's more like 30 years. And so would love your thoughts, Desi, to just add to that about how you're looking at that maybe differently.
We are introducing a different cycle for software, particular. And, it doesn't discount the need to validate them and go through them. But one of the things we recognize is we're going to use tools like over the air to provide our customers updates. Before, right, I'll say yesterday, forget when, our vehicles, you bought a vehicle and then that was it in terms of technologies. It didn't continue to enhance. Going forward, our vehicles are actually going to get the benefit of updates over time, just like your standard phone does, within reasonableness, right? Within what we know we can do. But I think that's going to completely change how our customers use the vehicle, and it'll change the life cycle to make not necessarily the hardware change more frequently, but some of the features, which is super important. If we think about a lot of the advanced driver assist technologies, as we learn more, as maps get more sophisticated, it's wonderful now that we can push that to the customer versus waiting for them to buy their next vehicle.
Yep, exactly. And curious, Jackie, from the Toyota side, with everything being virtual, how have you found virtual whiteboarding and getting those ideas out effectively?
It's a lot trickier. I used to call it the power of the marker and the whiteboard, right? There's nothing like sitting in a room with the marker and you can just
and an eraser.
Yeah, and the eraser, absolutely. Honestly, it's exhausting to do it remotely. If you're the one that's leading the whiteboarding session, to keep everyone engaged, to keep everyone focused, there is a difference between being in person and being apart. I will say one advantage that I've noticed is if you give your employees the time, if you give the team members the time to kind of get together and then step away and have their own space and time to brainstorm on their own, then they can come back with even better vetted ideas with things that they came up with on their own. And then we can kind of use this virtual whiteboarding experience to bring in all of these ideas that everyone had individually and kind of create a collective vision. So it is difficult, and it makes the days feel a little longer, but certainly it's still nice to have all the individual contributions from all the team members.
Kristen, I wanted to add to that. In our aerospace industry, we've been collaborating with highly controlled technologies over borders for several years. And, that collaboration is a place where the classification of an item would typically have to be defined at every export. So you have to understand which jurisdiction of the regulations you're working in, make sure you've classified it properly, export through your processes, make sure you're documenting and decrementing licenses that may be appropriate for the transaction, which is a hindrance a little bit for that creative collaborative type of environment that we want to work in for innovation. One of the things I think that we found helpful during that time is narrowly define the scope that we're working in with this foreign party or entity, and create a technology control plan that allows us to communicate a lot more easy without creating additional steps along the way.
Those are some good points. We had someone from the audience just talk about remote working environment, and do we think innovation has slowed in pace due to obstacles to effectively collaborate? Erin.
Yeah, on the one hand, I really hear what Jackie's saying, because she and Desi are probably more in that mode with engineering teams. So I know that it's harder. I don't think it's slowing, because we always say this thing that the market's not waiting. Somebody's doing it whether it's our competition or it's us. The market's moving forward, even though it feels like we pressed pause, sort of. What I think is interesting and challenges a little bit the thinking that it's harder to innovate remotely. For sure, that's true. But at the same time, I really liked what Desi said about making sure that all the voices are heard. And I think we have global teams, and I know most of my colleagues here do as well. And it's often true that unless you're in the conference room at headquarters, you're probably not going to get your voice out there as easily. Now, nobody's in the conference room at headquarters. And so I think in a way it's expanded the innovation dialogue to be a little bit broader, which has been a good thing.
Yeah.
Hey, can I build on that? Because I love that,
Please.
Karen. In fact, I spent 3 years on an international service assignment in Germany and sat at the other end of a phone. So I get that. And I think part of what this has also done is enabled everyone to be heard. And, let's recognize not everybody is as outspoken or eager to contribute, and they think differently, right? We have different personalities. And I think now being virtual, although it's incumbent on us to draw out those conversations, it does help everyone get heard. And I love what you said, Karen, because that's a natural outgrowth that none of us expected. But now we get to hear everyone, and everybody is remote. So it's not, 5 of us are in the conference room at world headquarters and everybody else is somewhere else. We all have an equal seat at the table.
Yeah, it's a leveler, I think. And it makes me wonder from a leadership perspective, someday when we're in a different sort of working environment again, what will we do to keep that engagement now with the people who aren't in the room? I think that's a good challenge for us.
Yeah, I think I'd have to steal the quote here, necessity is the mother of invention. I think as soon as we all were, shifted to remote work, all these new tools became available of how we share information and how we collaborate, how we work on a document, on the cloud. And I can think back to even just like 5 years ago when we would have video conferences, and that was how we communicated internationally. And really, there's not so much collaboration that can come of that. Now that we have these tools online to collaborate in real time on documents and and projects in Excel and whatever your software may be, I think it's much more effective than video conferencing ever was. So I agree. It's really been a great equalizer. That's been a tool that has helped to open up all of our international companies and collaborations in a way that we never had before.
Great. Raylin, it looked like you wanted to say something, or is that?
I did. I held back for a moment, but
good.
I love the topic. I think it was hit on earlier, but we could not have imagined that this pandemic was going to happen, that we were all going to have to get more savvy with technology, that the office place was going to have to open up to more remote capability that we've had, and in some cases industries have been pushing for, or at least the workforce has been pushing for. But we figured it out. We were thrust into it and we figured it out. And I think what came up was when we first started, we had challenges with our system supporting, right? The internet speeds weren't there. The connectivity was there. There may have been IT system improvements that had been put off for years or decades. And those then became priority so that we could continue to work. So we answered the call. And I think the initial question was, has it impeded innovation? No, I think it made us step back, look at it from a next level or a higher level, and then come up with the actions and tasks that we needed to do to work. So I'm optimistic.
I like that optimism.
It just reminds me that I remember when we first went to home work, on the 13th of March, there was this big trial day that everybody's going to be on the VPN all at once. And what's going to happen? Because really, that's a lot of people. And honestly, it's shout out to all the people who chose IT as a profession, and the guys that took the hardware path that wasn't the sexy path. In the end, these are the people that are making it possible to do our work. It's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, it's very.
You're here, Karen.
It is.
Jazz hands.
And it's amazing, what you can do when you're forced to. If you had talked to anybody last February, they would have said something like that would have been absolutely impossible to do in such a short time. So that's kind of a lesson that I've seen in my life in terms of, we think we can't do it, but we really can when we have to. And people do pull together. And you're right about the IT systems. Everything I think was afraid it was going to blow up, and it didn't. So, Raylin, I'd like to go on a little bit more on the technology side with you.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about technology and enablers, and I'm curious to get more, and from all of you on the panel, but I'd like Raylin to lead off about, so how technology has really changed the way we innovate and changed what we're actually producing.
So I think what immediately comes to mind is that, especially in the aerospace world, we were looking at life cycles to develop a new engine that could run decades. And technologies such as rapid prototyping or really rapid prototyping, I think, helped us to come up with the concept, quickly create the part, create simulations, so artificial intelligence to some level, create simulations of environments to reduce that life cycle in response to our customers' needs.
No, that's a really good point. Jackie, I was curious about, in terms of technology and the whole fuel cell world, have you seen much changes really take place in the past, let's say, 5 years or so?
Oh, well, I mean, specific to fuel cell, we have seen, improvements in efficiency for our particular system. Our second generation MaaS is about 10% more efficient if you look at, fuel economy compared to our previous version. So we definitely have seen improvements. I will say, related to the speed of innovation, there's been more of a shift towards the efforts in modeling and simulation, where, we can really do the software in the loop. Simulation to confirm the way that certain components are going to respond, in a fuel cell system, and that really speeds up our development cycle. And I think that's something that we're seeing across the board with all automation, to move towards more model-based development that really, again, helps to innovate faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And another question from the audience that I think Desi would be really relevant in terms of how customer acceptance is impacting your respective product development.
Oh, that's a wonderful question. And I'll go back to some of my opening comments. I think it's also customer trust of technologies. I think there's a huge amount of training that we need to do across the industry to really help educate consumers on advanced technologies and the benefits. But then, as we deploy them, to be able to iterate around the acceptance is also something that is shifting with technologies, right, and innovation. If we think about traditional, technologies, even just take something as basic as lamps in an automobile versus where intelligent lamps are, and we have things like, advanced lighting and advanced adjustments in lamps that happen automatically. So through we have consumers that, don't want to be bothered with any of that. They want to drive, they want to turn on their lights, and they don't want any to deal with, high beam, low beam, thinking about it. So we use consumer expectation and advanced data in how they use it. This is where it all comes together. We now have information around usage patterns, how do customers use technology, so that we can work on iterating a technology that is natural to how they would expect to use it. So, again, on that same, kind of context of lamps, you design lamps that have auto high beam on off, obviously live within a legal compliant framework, but deliver on those expectations to make the experience richer. And
design appropriately.
And this is going to be the biggest shift in using innovation, because we, again, back to the product cycle question you asked earlier, we used to design a product for a cycle. We now design what I call the basic platform, but the features will evolve based on consumer and technology availability.
Oh, fantastic point. Fantastic. Yeah, I really like that. It's thought-provoking, and you're right about it. It really lets you right-size the design, and so it can take out expense. And that knowledge of the consumer is just really critical, especially as we get, more individualized and, as in terms of a product base. Karen, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're thinking about the customer acceptance side of things. I think it's really a tough thing that we're struggling with. What's the customer ready for versus what's possible technology-wise? And you think on the one hand, if someone had come to us and said, hey, we're going to use big time data analytics and AI to be able to deliver packages the same day or the next day that you order them, the technology isn't what matters. It's the function that's enabled that matters. And I know for us, we have an AI example of a visor that basically it's just a visor, but it blocks out only the part of the sun that's hitting your eye, and the rest of it's transparent. And those are things that somebody who maybe says, I don't want AI in my car, for example, it's not about the AI, it's about the feature. And I think that really will change the adoption rate of some of this technology.
Yep, an excellent point, Karen. I think I'd like to kind of shift. So we talked a little bit about the workforce. Let's go into that a little bit more. And Jackie, I'm just curious, in terms of, there's many different studies out there with regards to DEI in the workforce. and enhancements in technology and in innovation development. And so based on your experiences, what have you really seen in terms of the impact of DEI and the workforce in and of itself?
How much time do we have? I could totally go on a soapbox here. Wow, yeah. Well, actually, I wrote this down, Karen, earlier when you were talking. You said associates are the drivers of innovation. And I mean, that is so incredibly true. And, diversity and inclusion is a key aspect of that, not only because it brings different perspectives into the room, but actually we have this business partnering group called Women Influencing and Impacting Toyota. And they introduced to me this Professor Scott Page at the University of Michigan. And he does a lot of work around, trying to quantify the effects of diversity. And he had this saying he said, identity diversity maps to cognitive diversity, which is a fancy way of just saying that who we are affects the knowledge that we acquire. What socioeconomic class we're in, our race, our sex, whatever. We all grew up acquiring all this different knowledge. And so if I'm in a room with all the people that had the same background and acquired the same knowledge as me, then innovation is really going to be stifled, right? But if I can surround myself, and now, the beauty again of the technology we have available now, people from other countries, right? Also. Bringing in this huge new set of knowledge is key to innovation, because we need all of that knowledge. I don't want to just be limited to what's inside my own head when I go to solve a problem or when I go to innovate. That doesn't make any sense. So I think it's really critical, and it's important, and it's been proven now. So I think it's just a key part of any business.
Yeah, really good points. Desi.
I just want to continue on Jackie's thought around having a bigger audience to innovate around. I think that, the more diverse our conversations are with the participants and the richness of the different backgrounds and perspectives, the more we create the right solutions. I think we're all customers, but we all have unique lenses. And what we bring to the conversation is so different. And, I think of us, as women, we bring inherent, sense of empathy, but also usage scenarios that are different than what our male counterparts bring. And I think all of those are so critical. And again, this platform of remote has enabled that to happen more naturally. And it's back to what Karen or Kristen, I don't know who said, we need to figure out how to continue this, because our workforces have been super resilient, and they all have different things going on in their households and in their remote workspaces, and allowing them the space to be able to be successful and to participate is actually creating better products and better conversations, because the world is different and we need to celebrate it.
Yeah, I think also, back to the comments that Terry made in her introduction, I completely agree, obviously, with what both of you said. I think one of the things that we have to just remember is how much farther we have to go. And from a leadership perspective, really seeking out the voices and the opinions of all these folks with really totally different either backgrounds or orientations or perspectives. And I think part of the challenge for us as leaders is recognizing that if we rely on everyone to advocate for themselves, we're going to miss these really important perspectives. And that's our challenge as leaders, is to figure out how to draw those out and engage them in a conversation.
And I just want to echo those comments. I am recalling how in the aerospace, I've been in this industry for some 25 years or so now, but I, in the past, saw where we had leaders that were historically either from the military but they were kind of cookie cutter, right? They had similar backgrounds, similar approaches as they went up through the stream, the leadership stream, and progressed. But in recent years, we've seen not only the diversity in so many different areas that we talked about, maybe it be race and gender, but also experiences. I recently worked with a senior manager coming into aerospace that came from the credit card management company inside of industry. And we've also had, different personality types. I had one manager. He was great. His personality was so big, so big and different from some of what we had experienced in the past. But I think what that takes us to do is take a step back and not follow the norm of what we've seen in the roles before, but open ourselves up to something different. Give it a try and see where that can take us.
I love that. Jackie.
Yeah, I was sorry, Karen, I feel like I keep picking on you, but you said something that's been kind of resonating with me, and that's, we can't rely on people to be their own advocates. And I feel like that's so true. And that's a big challenge and an opportunity for us as organizations and, for HR. How do we find these people that have been siloed, in the plants or in the distribution centers or in R&D? How do we take advantage of this hugely skilled workforce that we have, right? Hundreds of thousands of people with different backgrounds and talents that we can bring together to innovate in ways that we never have before, right? How do I, on my team alone, I have gaps that I cannot fill based on our current workforce. How do we find those people that are there and already working in our company and start to draw on the skills, not focused on the tasks, right? Not focused on what they already do and what we already do. Let's find and take advantage of this massive skilled workforce that we have. But, and I haven't found a way to do that yet, where really the entire organization is drawing on all of the available resources that we have. Yeah, not relying on the people to do it themselves, right? You can't. A team member won't know what they won't know. Exactly. They don't know what's going on and how to reach out to the right person. So we need to find a way to reach out to them and find them. And I think that's a fantastic opportunity for us.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And there's this like systemic challenge that we have. On the one hand, we do want to help orient people around the idea of, look, you're your own advocate for your career. You can decide what you want to be and what role you want to fill in the future. But how do we tell them what they don't know? And what we've recognized is that actually it's not a natural skill for people to be able to break jobs down into competencies as opposed to job descriptions. And that idea of everyone can be a coder or girls who code and those kind of things is so important, because we're now creating opportunities for people to maybe build a competence that they wouldn't have had. But it's a challenge, and we're trying to tackle it in our company at both the leadership level and then at the associate level, and even through the Bosch Community Foundation, actually through high schoolers and junior high kids, really focusing on careers in STEM and getting people excited about software and about science. And it's really a great big industry-wide problem. How do we convert from the skills of the past to the skills of the future? It's a challenge.
Yeah, I love that, Karen. Yeah, the question from the audience about the STEM and the work that you just mentioned Bosch is doing is fantastic. And how I look at it is it's about kind of rewiring our brain on our limiting beliefs that might have stemmed since childhood and society in general. So
yeah.
Correct. And I think as leaders, we're going to have to look for those competencies, those skill sets that have been demonstrated in existing performance, and touch someone on the shoulder and have that conversation and find that winning position for them to take on a role that they did not think of taking in the past.
Exactly.
Well, and building advocacy, right? We can all be sponsors and advocates for those pockets. And I think that making it a priority for us to do further not only sensitizes everybody to D&I, but it gets us more involved. And frankly, I think as a woman, we have skin in the game, right? And we understand what it takes. And I think we can help others navigate. And that's what I love about the panel that SAE has put together today, is not only do we talk about innovation, but indirectly we're talking about how have women helped support innovation and developing better products. And, that this is really inspiring to me.
Yeah, likewise, Desi, I agree. And I want to touch on something that I saw also someone in the audience mentioned in the poll about it's harder innovating from home because of kids and the home life, and now you're competing. And I don't think that's a problem unique to women. I have a son who's a new dad, and he and his wife are both struggling with how do we be great at our jobs and also take care of our baby together. But I do think that it has been harder in some ways for women during this last year. And part of our challenge is to figure out, okay, how do we make sure we haven't left this whole generation behind? And we're going to have to really figure out as we keep going or as we change to our new work environment, how do we make sure that the people who maybe couldn't engage as much as they wanted to the last 12 months really get that seat at the table again?
Yeah, that's a good way. And I'm just kind of looking at the time now. And what I'd like to do is my ending rapid fire question to each panelist. So I would love for each of you to briefly describe what you would call your key innovation moment in your career. Could be in the early stages or even recently. It's really up to you. And so with that, I will kick off with Karen. You're first on my screen.
Oh, great. Good. Okay, I'm going to, I'll pick a maybe, let's say, a provocative one. My innovation moment was a moment when I had brought together a group of really super smart people to try to create a new solution for an industry problem that we saw. And we were trying to do it with an ecosystem model. And my innovation moment that day was recognizing that I'm not by nature an innovator or really a creator or I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I'm not the person at the whiteboard saying, what if it looked like this? And what was that innovation moment for me was recognizing, though, that these people wouldn't be in this room together at this whiteboard if it wasn't for me, if I hadn't identified them. And for me, the innovation moment was recognizing this idea that you don't have to be a creator to be an innovator. There's a place for you in innovation. You bring something to that party. You just have to figure out what skill it is that you bring. So my innovation moment.
I love that, Karen. That's a great thought. Yeah, great. Jackie.
Oh, well, first of all, this panel has inspired me now to focus my innovation around people too. So thank you for that. That'll be my my next goal. But mine would have to actually be the exact date, October 21st, 2015, which is the day that Marty McFly goes back to the future. Being that was the day that we launched the first generation Mirai. And for me, at that point, I had been 12 years working on hydrogen and fuel cell technology, and it really been a dream of mine to see a production level fuel cell electric vehicle. So that would be my specific innovation moment that really was thrilled to be a part of.
Oh, that's fantastic and very inspirational. Desi.
Mine was more not necessarily a product, although it was around a wellness product. We had introduced massage seats in many of our products, and we were having a conversation around wellness and aging population and how do you use technology to offer other services. And what was really cool about the conversation was the participants. We had medical practitioners, obviously the engineers, the marketers, but in listening to the medical practitioners, particularly around sensitivity to data and what you use and how you use it, it reminded me, again, it goes back to that diversity comment, Jackie, that you made about the richer the participant set is from either an experience or personal demographics, the better conclusion you'll get to. So my moment is continue to ensure that you have the right level of cross-functional participation and DEI, because we bring different perspectives and the lenses will change. I completely walked away with such a different assignment in terms of what I wanted to accomplish from a wellness that would have not really delivered the capability.
Yeah, that's great, Desi. I remember that whole development on the massage seat too. That's great. And Raylin, your innovation moment.
So okay, I am unmuted. I am recalling back when I was working on the space shuttle program, and it was in 2003 that we lost Columbia. And I was a project engineer working on the program at that time. Of course, I remember back when I was a student when we had the prior loss. But now I was on the team. And so I became part of the return to flight team where we investigated a number of anomalies with the space shuttle. And I was responsible for a team that was going to eliminate liquid air in the aft compartment. And so that became a 2-year journey. I probably was on the road 3.5 weeks out of every month. We had a close-knit team. There was a lot of laboratory, inventive ideas of what could we create and use and implement on the space shuttle in short period of time and certifications. But I think one of the big takeaways was that it was the people. We came together with all of our different experiences, from the engineers, the material scientists, the mechanics that worked on the space shuttle and had to install what we were going to put in, the test engineers down at Stennis Space Center, and all of us together put together that solution that flew on STS-14. So we innovated together.
Just fantastic. I mean, that is really a true team moment, right? You have to have the whole team pull together. And so what a great group of totally cool women on really moving innovation forward in their respective areas. This has been so much fun. I hope the audience has enjoyed it as much as I have, and I know we have. And I'm going to hand it off to another woman, a power woman that I think is a fantastic role model, just in her life and career and what she does. Carla.
Thank you, Kristen. Boy, that was just amazing to listen to. And I could have listened to you all for another hour easy. And my job is perhaps one of the easiest to kind of wrap us up. And I heard so many great things. We talked about new mobility models and the changing consumer and the rapidity of technology. But I think there are 2 points that really, really stuck with me. And the first was, we learned a lot in this pandemic, and not all of it is bad. We all focus on the bad things, but this levelization of the playing field, getting all the voices to the table, similar to one of you who said they were on the other end of, the overseas headquarters. I've been on both sides of that. I know how it feels both ways, and it's very different, and it's unfortunate because you don't get all the players, you don't get all the thoughts. So how can we maintain that going forward, I think, is going to be really crucial. And that, goes right into what we heard about diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure those voices get heard as a moderator, as somebody sitting at the table, to make sure nobody gets silenced and that their voice gets heard, because that is what is going to lead us to the best products for our company and, most importantly, for our consumer in the years ahead. So I want to thank you all again. And I want to just move to the next slide if we could. We have another wonderful organization that's asked to have a little bit of time here. It's the Automotive Women's Alliance Foundation. Its purpose is also to convene ladies on common subjects, but also one of the largest initiatives is being able to provide scholarships for ladies wanting to enter the automotive field in any capacity. And to do that, we host a number of events, and there also is a lunch auction with the executives that are noted on this page. You can scan the QR code, and the auction closes today at 5 o'clock, and you get to spend an hour with one of these fabulous ladies in the near future. And I think I have one more slide. Yes, I get to go back to the book that Terry and I published together. What you just heard is multiplied in this book. You're going to hear about leadership, resilience, sustainability, equity, and more from the direct words of a number of executives in the industry. So I'd encourage you to get a copy and read it. I know when I did the editing, I was amazed at what some of these ladies had managed to do despite being pulled, you know, with an octopus feeling during this whole pandemic. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Mark, and thank you all again. It was great.
Carla, thank you. And again, thanks everyone for a wonderful discussion that you all had today. And it was really my pleasure to get to meet all of you beforehand and really get a chance to put this together. Gretchen Stokes and I've had many years of working with Toyota and their sponsorship of this program to bring in really different points of view from different industries as well as different technology. So thank you again very much for that. I did want to let you know that if you're interested in other leadership discussions we do have coming up in April, this is my shameless plug, is that you will see here on the board 9 other executive conversations on business models, consumer acceptance, government relation, how all of that blends together in order to make vehicles that are safer and more environmentally efficient for the consumer based upon their wants and needs. So we would encourage you to take a look at this opportunity. It's afternoons from the 13th through the 15th. So we talk about, again, propulsion, safety, public-private partnership. Desi talked about manufacturing. We're bringing that in to talk about how smart manufacturing and IoT and the whole digital thread, all of that plays an important role in the development of vehicles now. It's no longer siloed. So really excited about the fact that we have that opportunity and encourage everyone to take advantage of that. And then to do that, we actually are providing a couple of discounts. So we've had some QR codes together. If you're looking to participate, the WCX features over around 700 on-demand presentations. We will be doing 58 live discussions over the 3 days, as well as the 9 leadership discussions that we have. So the platform is a great opportunity to continue the networking with folks. Even though you are working remote, we have some great features for that in the networking opportunity, as well as a chance to meet and engage in panels like we had today on technology and business, as well as the opportunity to get your chance to get some books at a discounted rate. So again, Kristen, Karen, Jackie, Desi, Braylon, really thank you all very much. Wonderful insight on today's topic, and I wish everyone, I'd be remiss if I didn't miss everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day as well. So all of you be well in your home and life journeys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.